Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jim and Frank's Thursday Throwdown!
All right, Jim, here we are, another Thursday Throwdown and another special guest.
Yeah.
Why don't you do the honors?
We got Phil Cusimano here tonight from The Question, guitarist, vocalist. Phil, thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Yes.
So
Great.
happy to have you here with us. Why don't you tell us what albums you picked for this week's Throwdown?
Well, to this week's Throwdown, I picked one, the Jam Setting Suns, and two, the Jam Sound Effects.
Sound effects, yeah.
Right.
These go at each other today.
All right.
Two good ones, back-to-back albums.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, the fourth and fifth. We had talked about a couple of those. There's a UK version and a US version, correct?
Yes, there's UK, US, and a Canadian version.
I was going to say, I think there's a Canadian one also.
Yeah, in fact, that's the best track list. If you take, how it's set up, especially with a lot of the singles that came out too, that were thrown onto that as well. So, it flows really nicely.
What I found interesting, Phil, is the Jam were a singles band when it all started, right?
Yes.
And so when Setting Suns come out, there's one single.
Yeah, the Eaton Rifles. That's one, which is really weird. Different version because they did that with their singles versus what was on the album. If they put something on the album, there was always a different mix.
Okay.
So that was pretty unique. They were kind of harkening back to the 60s,
Right.
Those would have a certain song that wasn't on the album or a different mix on the album. So
yeah, that made it special for sure.
Yeah. You weren't getting ripped off.
Yeah. I with Setting Suns, it's a rocker.
Yeah, it's very much Marshall amps and just very much the distortion going on and just a heavier sound that following Ahmad Khan's, which I think was more of a Kinks style type of sound and such. This is more of what I thought the Jam really do sound like and what they sound like live at that time, especially. Right. So, it's a great production too. Some people say that that's an overproduced album, but I think it's spot on.
I think it's spot on also. Yeah. Totally agree with that.
One thing that we failed to mention is your band, Phil.
Yes, The Question. Yes.
And how much of an influence do bands like the Jam have on you as a player?
Well, for me, for sure. I'm relatively close in age with Weller too. We're probably 4 or 5 years difference. But what was interesting is that there's a similarity of things like The Who, the love of The Who, which I didn't know about the Jam until after The Who. So I love My Generation, and I love that, Quick One, and that whole little era right there. And to have the Jam, I mean, when I saw them, it was in 77, 78 on one of the TV shows, late night shows, and, blasting Rickenbackers and all that. I'm like, oh, this is my band. These guys, it's like, right. So I was really hooked into that band really quickly at that age. So they were a big influence for sure.
Right.
And same with Tony and David as well, the other two members of the band.
Right.
Which is a great thing because that really helps. We all have varying tastes as well, but it's a very common taste with us. So.
Right. Yeah, and I have been watching some of you have a few live snippets of your guys' songs here and there on Facebook.
Yes.
And
yes.
I recognize your style with your Rickenbacker and everything else. And you've got something that I truly love, and that is the ability to play chords and then a little lick and then the chords, and it's flawless sounding. You do an awesome job at that. And I think that's a Pete Townsend trait, of course.
Yeah, Pete Townsend definitely influenced Jimmy Page too,
right.
because I was a big Zepp fan in that era as well. And
Right.
the yeah, the Rickenbacker thing. When I was 13 years old, I wanted a Rickenbacker. So it's always been the guitar for me. Obviously, the Beatles were a big
Sure.
influence.
I was gonna say, was that like a little John Lennon influence sneaking in
George
there?
Harrison, actually,
George Harrison, yeah.
that 12 string, A Hard Day's Night. And in fact, the guitar I was looking at when I was 13 that I really wanted was a 12 string. And, I was saving paper route money on it, which
Like
at that
crazy.
time, if I tell you it's $300 back then, which
Right.
back then well, now it's like 1,500, 2 grand.
Easily. Right.
Yeah.
On $25 a month, maybe.
Yeah.
It'd take a long while, but yeah.
Well, we were talking about Setting Suns, and now it's a harder sounding record as
Yes.
far as the style of the songs. And then on sound effects, it is more of a, like we talked about before, you can feel the Beatles influence.
Yes.
There's some synths and horns and different things on there. And again, Paul Weller and his lyrics, very Beatlesque at times.
Yeah, especially, Start was, man,
Yeah.
just coming in on that bass line. But the other parts, like Set the House Ablaze, it's definitely very, it's a jam style. It actually could be a carryover from Setting Suns as well, because it's a very heavy sound. But the lyrics on that, along with Scrape Away, we might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but those songs are very political and very cutting. And it's very interesting because I was listening to Scrape Away a week ago or so. And I thought, man, it seems like this environment that we're in right now is very similar to what he's saying. It's very, and that was, I think a lot of it was had to do with the riots back in England, and I want to say Toxteth riots that happened in 79, 80, in Liverpool of all places again. I don't know. He wrote in that style, in that frame of mind that, some's got to give.
Right. And it is sad that it does just kind of go in a revolving door.
Very certain.
When songs like that become in vogue once again, it's just, we're not learning anything as people, obviously.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Jim, what is your take? Let's go back to Setting Suns. What is your take on that album first?
Well, I like it because it rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys, what is your take on their version of Heat Wave?
Okay. Go ahead, Phil. You go ahead.
Well, for me, I think it was more of a throwaway in a way. It doesn't fit the album.
Would have fit on sound effects, I think, a little better.
Yeah.
Had they slowed it down.
Or even a single,
Yeah.
Like a single would have been great,
They sounded to me like they were rushing to get to the end. Like how fast can we play this?
Mm-hmm. There was no feel to it at all.
Right. It lost all the soul, I think, out of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. It just doesn't have that part of it. I think a lot of the way the juxtaposition where they put it in the album, if I remember correctly, the Canadian one, which I haven't called up, they drop it like in the second side 2 or side 1. Let's see. Let me look just really quick.
Okay.
Side 1, the Canadian, it's on side 1, the last song on side 1.
Last song, yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to throw it there, because on the US version, it's the last song on side 2, I believe, and so is the UK version as well. No, I'm sorry. US version, it's also side 1 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was kind of like okay, why is this?
Right.
It kind of, I think this album started out as a concept album, and 3 friends and what happens to these friends as they go through life. The ones successful doing, business, and what happens to their friendship, which is really in thick as thieves, separates, and they become their own people, but they can look back, but they have nothing in common anymore.
Right.
That's,
And I know the album doesn't finish off as a concept album. I was reading about that today, how that was the intention, but then these
Yeah.
other songs came into play and they were just too good not to put on a record.
Right. Yeah.
So,
But you definitely see themes in it.
Yes.
there's
You know?
weaving. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Burning Sky is a big one. That's, I think that tells a story pretty much, how are things in your little world, written as a letter
Mm-hmm.
in a sense to these other guys. I'm doing fine. I'm in industry. I'm doing, making money, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's what I'm doing, and then Smithers Jones, that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us have been there, going
Corporate grind.
right, the corporate grind, and then getting taken into a room saying, "Hey, we're going to lay you off. Here's your, last paycheck." And
Right.
it happened to me actually. I got a last paycheck, and then I got like protein bar.
Oh.
Yeah, that was an interesting layoff.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Smithers Jones.
There you go.
That's exactly what I put on right after.
Oh man. And mentioning these songs, and you go back to Heat Wave, and it's way out in left field.
Yeah, I mean, again, is it because it's party time?
Maybe.
Maybe that was the intention, just kind of lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, could be. I don't
Interesting thought.
know. Yep. Now, what
Even
about
another one too? With
Mhm.
the private school boys and all that, and their attitude, and I'm sure we've run into some of them before,
Yeah.
and that whole scene is just the elitist scene, pretty much.
Right.
And I think this is the thing about the Jam was that they were working class. I mean, they were
Yes.
very much. Their parents had to work. I mean, what Paul Weller's dad was like a bricklayer,
Mhm.
doing walls and stuff, and his mom was like a cleaning lady, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a tough life.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Foxton's. I think Buckler's same thing. They just worked, and then
Right.
to come up against this society, that class society, especially in England at that time, especially.
Well, that was a big part of it. And you think you can even go back to like a band like Black Sabbath. They were in the same boat.
Yeah.
They worked, you were in the industry, and that was it.
Especially in Birmingham, because
Right.
definitely an industrial
Factories and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
you're in it. If you're living outside of town, you're going to work at that same factory that your grandfather worked at, great grandfather, parents, everything.
Sure.
Just watch your fingers. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Poor
Yes.
Tony. He's done okay for himself, though. I think in the since then.
I think
Oh.
Django, he got the Django vibe too, because he saw Django doing
Right.
stuff. Django, right?
You're absolutely right. Something like that happened to me, and it's over. I'm not thinking about putting leather on my fingertips. I'm not thinking about anything
Yeah.
else except having a pity party. That's just how it is.
Sell all the gear.
They're understandable, though.
Oh yeah. Okay, Jim, sound effects. What's your take on that?
Like it. It's got a little more of a soul vibe to it. That's why I was thinking Heatwave maybe
Yeah.
fit on there a little better had they been a little more true to the original.
Yeah.
Was this your first time hearing it, Frank?
Yes, absolutely.
What did you think when you heard Start?
I loved it. I actually loved it. I went back and I looked. Okay, this was a single. Okay, makes sense.
First single off the record.
Yeah.
I can remember hearing it for the first time and go like, wow, this really sounds so familiar. Where do I know this from?
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is Taxman.
Yeah.
Got
a little. The whole theme runs through it. You feel the Beatles on this record with some of the production, and I was telling, excuse me, Phil, earlier. My dig at this record was the reverb on the vocals. And that was a part of the times. That's how records were produced in especially early 80s. They were using all those effects. And it was just a little too much for me, especially
was this 1980? Late 79.
It was 1980.
1980. Okay.
which is interesting because that's when I was actually into I went to recording engineering school in 19. So
Nice.
down in Hollywood, down there, doing the recording engineering, learning of the craft.
Wow.
And I remember there was a lot of talk about the digital reverbs and playing around with these lexicon. That was the model
Mm-hmm.
digital reverb, and you know it was pretty cool because we were used to either doing a natural type reverb in a room type thing, but this was now you had this little gadget you can just
Out of a box.
I was gonna say that would have been fairly new at the time,
It was
right?
very new. I mean, it was
Mhm.
1980. So I do remember one studio thing that we did, and it was a part of the class, and we got in there really late. They let us play around in this studio. I think it was like 2 in the morning or something like that, and we grabbed 24 track of somebody. I think it was Carla Bonoff.
No.
Oh,
They
Yep.
threw it on the machine, and then just started getting that lexicon going.
just monkeying around with it. See what
Yeah,
it would
until
do.
about 4 in the morning. It's like, oh God, we got to go.
Cool.
Funny.
So I think that's probably what kind of happened here a little bit. There was a
Mhm.
little more of production, new gadget time.
Yeah.
And you could see, I think one of the pictures on the sleeve is, I think it's Paul Weller's got his guitar, his amp, and there's like a tin roof type, you know, one of the, not a shingle, but you know, a slat, tin roof
Mhm.
slat,
Oh, uh-huh.
put in front of the microphone and the amp. I think it's on the back of that thing, but it or inside the liner. Um, and that was a technique again. They were trying to get
Right.
some wacky sound. I mean, we would do that too. You'd throw a microphone down a hallway and the guitar in the bathroom and see what the reverb was coming.
Try to get some kind of natural echo out of it or whatever, right?
Yeah, just the playing with sounds. And I think this is what happened with this album. And in fact, I think now I'm trying to remember because I talked to Bruce Fox and when they came here in '82, um, I talked to him about a little about the recording of this because this is my favorite Jam album.
Okay.
So he said, yeah, the only thing he didn't like about it was the fact that his bass seemed very thin and not recorded what he had recorded. So there was a bit of a disappointment of his.
Interesting. Because when I was listening to it, I was like thinking, man, you hear that Rick bass like so.
Well, he's playing a precision
Oh,
mostly.
is he a precision on that?
Mostly
Oh,
precision.
maybe I'm thinking of Setting Suns then.
Yeah, I don't know. They really kind of transitioned there. He's kind of went with that precision bass because it had a little more fullness to it. I mean, Rickenbacker's great. You know, I love playing my Rickies, but that precision has a little more roundness to the tone. I think the tone on Setting Suns, personally, for me, it's better than uh, sound effects. There's just something about the tone in it. But that's not knocking it because I love, you know,
Right.
Monday. That's great.
Well, one of my all-time favorite bass players, whatever he's playing, it sounds great.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
Underrated.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
When people talk about great bass players, like he's one of those names that like if it comes up, it comes up late in the conversation. But
Right.
I think if you know, right?
Absolutely.
I thought about you quite a bit, Jim, while listening to both these records because the bass lines are so fantastic. They are the true, you know, melody. What's going on? They're holding everything down, and they're all, some of them are all over the place.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Set the House Ablaze. There's some interesting bass in that.
Yeah.
I mean, so with this, you know, that lead part on the guitar coming through, and in the sections, the chorus section. Well, I don't want to say the choruses, but they're in the verses. There's one section that he really goes off on the bass. There's just some craziness, and yeah, trying to figure that out.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I think this has got some of my favorite songs. I mean, That's Entertainment is obviously a
great one. Yep.
iconic song by them. Start, but the whole album overall, I mean, it's just Pretty Green, Monday. I mean, all of it is just so good. So
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
And to say it's your favorite, I mean, it's Paul Weller's favorite too, so you're in good company there.
I
So.
know, and when he told me that, I was blown away because this album was really the first one that came out that I picked up the day of release without hesitation. I had Modern World already. Setting Suns, it's kind of drawn a blank on when I got it. I think it's around this time or a little bit after because 79, Setting Suns was 79.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and I know I was into new wave, whatever. I was into really a lot of Squeeze, Joe Jackson, all that stuff. And Joe Jackson's bassist, again, Graham Mabby.
He's one of the best. Another guy underrated.
Yes. So when I got this, I remember I got the UK pressing because that's what was in the store. I used to work at a record store here in Pasadena, Big Ben's. And they used to have.
I remember Big Ben's.
Yeah. Remember that they had a really good import section, I mean, I got the Buzzcock stuff and all this great stuff, and it was always loose bag because they didn't
Right
like they did in here in the U.S. So I remember just getting this album, and my manager at work, I'll never forget when I pulled it out. She goes, "Oh, that doesn't go in the sound effects section." And I'm like, "No kidding."
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But yeah, that was my first, and I think I have a real partial love for that because of that. It's just like that.
I heard that sound effects was a little bit of a divisive album for the band. That that Rick and Bruce were, I don't want to say unhappy with they were a little unsure of the direction that Paul was kind of taking the band in. Did you hear anything like that?
Not at this point. I think more towards the next album, The Gift, and the sort of that transition era. There were a few singles that came out.
Yeah.
So I think the one thing I heard was that they were really listening to Revolver a lot at that period, and that's why it really transcended in this album. And that was kind of the main driving force for this whole recording. But as far as any unhappiness, no, I don't know.
Maybe it was more around the time of The Gift.
Because I think that's more where he was really going more toward the soul.
Well, yeah, way more, actually.
The horns came in on start, on the
Yep.
Right.
That's not the horns. I always forget if it's the single version or the LP version. There's also a different mix between those two. Oh. And if you got the single UK, you got the Village People on the other side on the mix.
Oh, really?
That's great. Yeah.
Yes, there's a
interesting point.
That happened, and I got it, and it was like, what the heck? That's not Liza Radley.
Yeah.
I was always kind of frustrated. Maybe you just had to know where to hear them, but like I would see pictures of Jam like in Cream magazine or whatever else, and I would read all about them, and I would read these interviews, but like I could not turn on the radio and hear the Jam.
Great station was the one in Claremont, the college.
KSBC.
Yeah. That
which I didn't even discover until 1981.
Okay, yeah, no, but that era.
But by that time, I'd already heard The Gift. So.
Yeah, no,
only because of MTV.
Yeah, with Town Called Malice. Yeah, they were playing.
Right.
Yeah, no, that was that radio station was so influential. I heard so much stuff.
That's still a great station. You probably can't pick it up where you're at, but I can get it on the east end of the San Gabriel Valley here.
Well, I'm on internet now. I mean, I don't
Oh, sure.
A wired radio anymore.
Yeah. Oh, well, I pick it up when I'm driving around in the car. I'll put it on KSBC.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's as far as that thing again with Paul Weller, I was just blown away because I went and saw them on their Gift tour and got to talk to them a little bit, and I don't know, you saw that picture of me on Facebook there.
Yeah.
Well, I was sitting there on my scooter backstage. It was a Memorial Day. That's why it's really key Memorial Day album for me too, or the whole thing. Just sitting back there, and he comes walking up, and he's checking out my scooter. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's a nice scooter," and I'm just like, aha. I mean, I said, and then first thing I said, "So what do you think about the sound in this place?" And he's like, "Oh, it's shit." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, how about your boxes? What's going on with those? Are those old ones or new ones?" And we just started talking about guitars, and then it came up to that album. I said, "Yeah, I really like sound effects." He goes, "That's my favorite as well." So I was like,
Yeah.
so it was,
Good
it was
company.
really cool. It was probably like 2 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity in a way because of what to talk about and being tongue tied. But
Well, that's great that you got to meet him and that you
Yeah.
had a positive
yes,
experience.
definitely positive. And the other times I've met him, 2 other times. Always been a really cool cat. Just a really good
That's great.
Foxon was cool too, but his story was after the gig. He was all, "Where are the birds at?"
Oh, sure.
Down to business.
They're around. And Buckler, I didn't talk to. He seemed to be really either shy or just kind of kept to himself pretty much. So,
Yeah.
but
Where was the show at?
at Perkins Palace
Oh,
over,
at Perkins. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, that was it was Memorial Day weekend, and we made it. This was at the time of the On Club and all that was going on.
Uh-huh.
So we made it like a 4-day weekend because it started on Friday, because they were signing records down at Tower Records down there on Sunset. So
Yeah, I saw the picture of all the scooters in the parking lot there.
Yeah.
that was a scene. That
Very
was
cool.
great. It was great. It was great to have them come, because you didn't know, these bands, especially because of their disdain of coming to the U.S.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't really tour here much. Very little.
Yeah, I think the time before was 1980. I think it was. Oh no, it was. They didn't even tour sound effects really. They were here for
It was
Fridays.
like a few shows or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was actually they even played at a club for
Oh,
Fridays.
Right.
I don't know why they would come all this way without playing a club. I'm not sure about that little bit, but I know before that it was they played either at UCLA at Poly Pavilion. Um,
they had them at one point. I know opening. I can't remember who they were opening for, but it was like a really odd match. Like,
Oyster Cult one.
yeah, I think it was
Oyster
Blue
Cult.
Oyster Cult, right? And it
Wow.
ended up being kind of short lived because it's just
That's
two
an
very
odd
different
match.
audiences, right?
What do you think, Frank? Because I know you're more
Yeah.
you're
No,
a Blue Oyster Cult fan, right?
I love them, but I wouldn't, I would show up late probably.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be an interesting juxtaposition.
Strange. Yes. No,
But
that's,
then I think they played with the Damned, if I'm not mistaken. I think they did.
Oh, maybe a little better pairing.
The Damned were, at that point, it was that violent Damned,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
none of the polished Damned.
Well, I think I know where this is going, Jim, but are you going to pick one of these albums as a favorite?
Yeah, of the two, it's got to be sound effects.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that's where Phil's going.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I got you.
Again, Setting Suns, the guitar on that, and all the wording, especially Wasteland. Wasteland is an awesome, awesome song.
Yeah.
Trumps about like 3 or 4 of the songs on sound effects, but sound effects really is clear winner.
I'm going to go with Setting Suns, from the album cover to the production of the songs and everything else. For me, that's where I'm at. But
what do you think about that album cover?
I tell you what, initially when it was going by, I thought it was like a GI Joe style album cover, like the Green Army Men type of thing. That's what I got out of it at first, and then it's like, okay, let me take a look here. What's going on? But it's artistic.
It's very interesting. I was dating a girl at the time, and the next door neighbor had a really nice stereo system, really, really top of the line. So I took over Setting Suns, and he's looking at the album cover and goes, "This album cover is shit."
No.
It's ugly.
No.
Like, kind of crestfallen a little bit.
Yeah.
The music's good,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's all right. So he's a little bit older.
Sure.
He had a family already, he was much older.
Right.
He wanted to hear Dion and the Belmonts.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
I like them too, actually.
Yep.
but one thing about that album cover, and I'll throw this in here.
Okay.
When I went to this is the
The
statue.
statue itself.
That
Okay.
was it's at the Imperial War Museum. So I was there, I don't know, 1989, I think it was, and just was walking around, and I'm like, there it is.
There's the statue. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and then just you get this kind of funny feeling. You go, wow, this is an album cover that's very iconic.
Right.
So, not that my girlfriend's neighbor.
Yeah.
Shit. So. You have to beep this out.
Oh no, it'll be all right. Well, it's funny because a lot of bands, they use the same artist over and over for album covers, and
Right.
when a band like every album cover is so different, they do put something into it where it's not just record company says this is what it's going to be. Here's the studio says this is your album cover. I know Rainbow and Black Sabbath went back and forth over the Difficult to Cure, and I think it was even Heaven and Hell. No, Never Say Die back then.
Oh yeah.
They were flipping through those different. Oh, if you don't take this, Rainbow is going to take it. If you don't, and these are Never Say Die. You look at that album cover; it's got nothing to do with Never Say Die. It's an Air Pilot.
I know you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's a Black Sabbath record."
Not at all. No, and that was going to go to Richie Blackmore at one point. So I was like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, but that's what I like about the Jam's album covers. They're theirs.
Yeah, they do vary for sure.
Right.
Well, especially, sound effects with all the
Yeah, homages to different things going on there.
yeah. It's a very you can look at it, and there's a little story within each one of those photos.
Yep, most definitely. Well, Jim, it looks like it's a majority decision.
Majority decision.
Yeah.
I guess we can call it a knockout.
If you, technical knockout, because Setting Suns didn't go down without a fight.
No.
No, and
Both
there are
are records. I love them both.
and no wrong answers, like we always say. These are just
No
two
wrong
great
answer.
records, and I
It's all
appreciate.
opinions.
Yes, Phil, I appreciate you bringing this to the table because it's something I wouldn't listen to on a regular basis.
Well, I'm glad you got a chance to listen, and I hope it grows.
Oh,
Because
most definitely.
that's one of the one of the beautiful things about the Jam is once you get locked in a couple of their songs, it's just like, wow, okay, you get over the vocal part because when I first heard "This Is the Modern World," that was my first Jam song I ever heard, and it's no, this is the modern world. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I played it again, and my mom's like, "What is that?" I could hear in the room across, like, "Who is that? You can't sing." Turn that. Like, no, rebellion.
There you
He's
go.
got it. Yeah, he's got a style.
He does.
Most definitely. And again, such a clever lyric writer there.
Yes.
So,
For sure.
all right. Well, Jim, if there's nothing else.
All right. We'll see you next week.
All right.